The repatriation process to return the human remains of those who died in the Limpopo bus crash 2 weeks ago begins today.
Yeah, at least 6 families from Botswana will meet South African government officials at the Mokopane Hospital in Limpopo. Yesterday, officials say 6 bodies had been positively identified via tissue samples and DNA evidence. Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan has that update and chats to Aldrin now.
Well, and she joins us now live from Mokopane. Karinda, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. Explain to us what the process would unfold now, considering that only 6 bodies have been positively identified.
Certainly, well, this moment is one that the families have been waiting for the past 2 weeks, to bring the remains of their loved ones home and begin the funeral process. There was a memorial service in Botswana about a week ago, but now going forward, this is the time to bury their loved ones. And it is difficult, Aldrin, because the bus crash, when the bus plunged off that bridge, crashed into the embankment and caught fire, saw many of the bodies being burnt and is ultimately unrecognizable. So there's been a challenge to identify the bodies, and that is why there's been tissue sampling and DNA evidence. So, and that is also why the numbers have been fluctuating. Yesterday, Limpopo government officials told media that 6 bodies were positively identified via tissue sampling. But today, as we come in the morning, just having a chat with some of the officials on the ground, they say now this could be 8. Remember, just about 2 weeks ago, the number was at 9. So these numbers are fluctuating, and we're not exactly sure how this process is going forward in terms of the identifying, but perhaps the Limpopo Health MEC will shed more light on it. I'd like you to take a listen to what she said yesterday regarding the identification process.
The 6 have been positively identified, even using the fingerprints. The process of tissue sampling has been completed. All the samples have been sent to our DNA laboratory, 72 tissue sampling, depending on the body parts that we found. They are already at the lab undergoing their analysis, or they are at an advanced stage. Remember, we said our Botswana counterparts will do DNA sample for comparison. They've already completed. They've sent the data to us. We have the data. So we are in the process of comparison. Sooner than what you think, the 2 presidents will be inviting you, as they will be handing over the remains.
Now, some of the families arrived in South Africa at midnight, and they are being given accommodation here in Mokopane, and they will arrive a bit later on to meet with SA government officials. There will also be officials from Botswana here, and it's going to be a program just over 2 hours, because after that meeting they will first receive counselling. And this is so important, Aldrin, because after that counselling, they will then go in to see the human remains of their loved ones, and then begin that repatriation process. But you must know that it has been 2 weeks. The state of the human remains is quite a dire state, and so therefore they need that counselling. So it also depends on how long this counselling process will take. Currently, the psychologist is inside this building, just meeting with officials to try and plan what is going to be said going forward. A professional person to just help guide these families and be there for the loved ones that must now collect the bodies of their families and bring them home. There's also a question about the funding regarding this. Yesterday, we saw the Botswana President Mokgweetsi Masisi and our President Cyril Ramaphosa meet. They heaped praise on each other at the accident site about the relationship between the 2 countries. But when asked about the funding process, Limpopo health officials came forward to say, well, we've got RAF in our country, and the act of the RAF states that any person who has been injured in an accident on the country's roads will be supported by the RAF under certain circumstances. But in this case now, South Africa is looking to partner with Botswana and their respective entity in order to actually take this process forward, because there are 45 individuals involved here, 45 families at least, and many of them who lost their breadwinners. So this is a question that must be answered going forward, especially considering some of the financial issues that our entity, RAF, finds itself in the current times. So, of course, that is a conversation after this, but right now we're waiting to hear from the families, to see the families, and of course, especially for government officials, it's a time to support those who lost their loved ones. We'll keep you updated.
Thank you so much, Karinda Jagmohan, joining us from Mokopane.